everybody, welcome back to another saltwater series bass fly tying tutorial. So, sticking with the old theme of flatwings, I'm going to tie just a dead basic white flatwing. Now everyone knows, I say everyone, anyone who's done any saltwater fly fishing around the UK waters knows that white is a very effective colour. So I'm just going to tie up a dead basic white pattern, no frills, something that sort of everyone can have a go at tying really. All you need is a few materials. You need some Flatwing feathers, so I'm using a Ewing white saddle. They come in half saddles. You can get these from Kenney or Deer Creek in the UK. Bucktail, just in white. It's quite a big one. I have got a couple of smaller ones. Some thread, white thread, saltwater hooks, and some body braid. That's about all you need. So we're going to start with hooking the vise. Hook I'm using is a Abrames hooks SA220 streamer in a size 2. It's going to wax my thread. Just going to lay down a thread base. This thread's a gel spun thread, 50 denier, rather than a nylon thread, a bit stronger. I'm going to start with a small piece of bucktail, and this is just to support that initial flatwing feather. You don't need loads, so what I do is I tend to pick a piece out, run my finger and thumb down it, and then pick out the crap that you don't need. You should be left with sort of a dozen or so bucktail fibres. Just going to trim the butts so they're nice and flush, and then tie that in just opposite where the barb sits. A couple of loose wraps and then sort of tighten up. Just make sure you're happy with how that's sitting. There we go. I'm going to come in. The first feather is a cock neck hackle from Ewing. This is the dry fly mini packs, but these make absolutely ideal because of the way they sit sort of concaved. You want a concaved feather as your first feather, and that just helps support the flat wings. So I'm just going to pick a feather out and I'll show you what I mean. So I've got my cock feather. I'm just going to pull out some of the fluff at the bottom and then offer that up, and you can see straight away how that's sat sort of concaved to the bucktail. There we go. Perfect. You just trim off the end of the stem, just offer some wraps down, and then come back towards, because we don't want it too bulky, and just put some loose wraps just to control that cock feather a bit. There we go. See how the thread's controlling what the feather's doing. It's just helping it lay it down a bit. There we go. Right, so I'm going to come in with feathers of 3 different sizes. I want a short one, and this is just going to sit on top of that cock feather. So I'm going to peel away the marabou stuff at the bottom. What I want to do is use some of that marabou and just break it apart a little bit, wax up your thread, and then just dub it on. Don't need loads. And it doesn't have to be neat either. There we go. That just creates a little pillow for your Flatwing to sit on. I'm just going to offer it up, and it's just going to hang a tiny bit over the end of the cock neck. And just one loose wrap. See how it's sitting. Remember, you can always undo your wraps. Just manipulate it around a bit if you're not happy with it. Take a wrap off and just try and grab that stem if you're not happy. There we go. Just try and manipulate it around a bit. And go a couple of wraps to secure it down. Going to come with our second feather, which is a little bit longer. So each time we're going to come over sort of 10 to 20 mil over the end of each feather. Obviously the bigger the fly, the more you're going to come over the end of your last feather. So I've stripped away the marabou again. I'm just going to offer that feather up. Same again. About half an inch. Again, 1 or 2 wraps. Make sure you're happy with it, make sure it's sat perfectly on top. There we go. Perfect. And last we're going to come in with the third feather, which again is even longer, and we're going to strip out all this marabou. Let's just have a look first. It doesn't come massively over the back of it, but enough. Comes over the back of it enough, because if you don't want it massively long, but you can make these as long as you want, to be honest with you. But you will get, you can foul around the hook if you go too long, which we don't want. This is why we use a supporting feather. So that's over the top of that, and again, one loose wrap, pull it back in the centre, do another loose wrap just to see where it's at, and if you need to move it around, manipulate it, you want it sat as flat as you can on top of the hook, like that, so you can see where I've peeled away the marabou, and it's just started, and that is now sat flush on top of the hook. I'm just going to trim away the stem and just tidy up. There we go. I'm just going to put a dab of super glue down. I'm not doing anything fancy with this. I'm just going to put a little bit of flash through it. This is CraftyFly. It's a bit like polar flash, but I'm just going to look for the, if I've got 1 or 2 strands of gold, I'm not that bothered, but I'm just trying to get the pearl and the silver really, but I'm not too bothered about a couple of flats, a couple of strands of gold. So I don't want loads, sort of 4 strands maybe. There we go. Just to come over the back of the feathers again. There we go. Try and get them on top of the hook. and with this excess I will use that in the next fly. I could have halved it and tied it in and peeled it back on itself, but that's just how I like to do it. And I'm going to come put a few wraps down, just secure that flash. Right, for the body I'm going to use a mini flat braid. I've found a flat braid that is nice and flat, it's not too chunky. What I was finding is most of my flat braids, I don't think I've got an example. Yeah, I have. Most of my flat braids, I'm not going to tell you which brand this is, but most of my flat braids were too fat and too chunky when they were on the fly, which I didn't like. I like slenderness and I like my flies to look sleek. So I found Lagartun mini flat braid, but they also do it in a regular size on a card. So they come in various different colours and stuff. For this fly I've just got a pearl. Because this is only a size 1, I'm just going to go for the mini flat braid. So just peel short length off. I'm just going to tie that in on the closest side of the hook facing myself, and then sort of pull it out, and then that'll just keep the, if you pull it out at like a 45-degree angle and wrap back towards the feather, that'll keep the thread nice and neat close together. There we go, and then bring the thread all the way back down. Just catching any other materials like any stems or anything like that as you go. I'm just going to put a small amount of super glue just across the top. That's just going to help seal that braid as it runs down the body. And all we're going to do is we're just going to come round and sort of do touching turns. You can overlap a little bit if you want to build up a little bit more of a body, but there we go, and sort of come to a mill before the eye, because we're going to tie in some more bucktail. There we go, so front and behind, that just secures it, and then I've still got enough there for my next fly. So next I'm going to come in with some more bucktail. I've got loads of bucktails, loads of different bucktails, and I'm just trying to find the smallest one because, well, this one's good enough. I like the crinkly wavy bucktail, and for bellies I like to use this stuff up here. It's not too it's not going to flare too much, it hasn't got too much air in it. So I'm just going to take a small pinch, around half a pencil width, and for these style of flies, these size, these sub 3 inch bucktails from beast brushes, they're not graded, they're just small. If you're starting out fly tying, if you're starting out doing saltwater patterns, these are absolutely brilliant. I've used quite a few of these now, and I'm about to order some more, but they're absolutely fantastic for the small stuff that especially those UK tyers tie. So I've got some bucktail, and I'm just trying to pick out the ends, the fluffy bits that we don't need. And this bucktail underneath, we want it to come sort of almost halfway between the bend of the hook and the first bit of bucktail. So I'm just gonna, so I've measured up, and I'm gonna trim off. And I'm just going to tie that in as neatly as I can. I'm just going to have to twist my thread a bit. There we go. Let's do sort of 3 or 4 wraps and then pinch it and then just sort of lay it down and then try and work it back past the hook and then pull down tight. Once we're happy, we can sort of manipulate it between our finger and our thumb, and sort of that'll help spread it about 180 degrees around the bottom half of the shank, and then pull down tight and tidy up them butt ends. And then when we turn it back over, we have a belly, and you can almost see, I don't know if you can see that, but you can almost see that the whole top of the shank is free from material and the bottom of it is covered, so we've done a good job there. So that's fine. Especially this is important if you're putting a different colour over the top. Not so important because we're just doing white, so it's not that, it doesn't make that much of a difference. So over the top we're going to do the same again, but we're just going to try and make that bucktail a little bit longer. So again, around half a pencil width, and clean out the fluff underneath. This creates unnecessary bulk that we don't need. We like nice sparse flies. There we go. And I'm just going to come and look at the length, and I want the length to really come back towards the end of that first bucktail tie-in, so offer up sort of meet the tips. That's where I want that to be. I'm just going to trim my butts and then tie in 1, 2, 3. Keep a little bit of tension on your bobbin and then just work that around that top half of that hook. So check the length, and then we can sort of pull down, not too tight, but we can put some tension on and then tidy up. There we go. Cool. Right, so again, a little bit of flash. Got bloody Peacock Herl in on my flash. So for this flash, I'm just going to put in, this sometimes can be a little bit controversial putting these in traditional style flatwings, but sometimes I like them with flash. Sometimes I like them with a lot of flash, sometimes I like them with absolutely zero flash, and I do carry both in my box because it depends on the day. If you have fished for a bass, you know they can be very fussy. So this is micro lateral scale. So I'm just going to take one strand and run it over the back of my hook, of my thread, and sort of offer it to the side, and then tie that in down the side. So that's one side already done. And we can trim to size to suit once we've tied it in. And again, one single strand. It's funny tying in lateral scale because I never used to do it, or I always used to forget to do it, and my friend Stu always, every time I posted on Instagram without a lateral line, Stu always used to message me and going, "Where's your lateral line?" I think he's a firm believer of importance of a lateral line in your flies. Since then, I try to get one in every time. So that's the lateral line in, and essentially that's the fly done. You can leave it like that, but what I like to do is I like to just come over the top just to create like a back of some Peacock Herl. Now this is a dyed black. You can use natural, you can use whatever your colour you've got really. I know some people have used ostrich over the back, but I'm just going to do a little bit of Peacock Herl over the back, not too many, and you can see already just by looking at the video it comes in different sizes in a bunch, so what I like to do is I like to try and get the longer stuff and just separate it and just pick it out from the bunch if I can. There we go. Just literally, I don't think there's less than 10 Peacock Herl fibres there, and I'm not going to use all of it, but I know it's sort of semi-consistent, and I want to put that over the top towards the back, around the same length as that longest feather. So I'm just going to trim to shape, trim to size, sorry, and then I'm going to reverse tie it in. Now reverse tie in Bucktail, reverse tie in Peacock Herl makes it easier for the Peacock Herl to sit down, in my opinion. I might be wrong, but that's just from what I have found, than tying it in straight. So I'm going to spread it out a bit and fold it back and just build up a little bit of a thread dam. If I have to come over the top of that Peacock Herl once just to tidy it up, then I will. I'm not overly fussed about it. There we go. And then after that it's just a case of adding some eyes, which at this stage I'm using a jungle cock, a natural jungle cock, which is getting harder and harder to source. So I'll just take 2 feathers, 2 individuals, and you sort of, when I do this, I just grab the orange bit, the eye, and then I just try and very gently just peel back the fibres, and then just peel them off. As simple as that, and that's as easy as it gets. I'm going to reverse tie them in, so I'll just look for the base of the white section, and then tie that in. There's one. Same again on the other side. And then just fold them back on themselves and then tidy up that head. I don't like a massive head. If you see some of the traditional ones, the threads go quite far back, but I don't like a big head. I'd rather a nice neat thread dam. I'm just going to whip finish, do a couple of them, then trim off, and then we're going to give that a bit of a soak in and a dry, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what it's like when we finish. So I'll see you in a minute. Alright then, we are back. So just very quickly, I'm just going to finish this off. Just going to offer a little bit of black Sharpie, colouring that thread on top, and it will bleed through, but I'll just let it bleed through. I'm not overly fussed about it. And then I'm going to take some Deer Creek Fine Flex UV resin, and this is going to just seal off everything on the seal off everything, which would be good if it didn't. There we go. Set in the bottle a little bit, which is, it happens. So I'm just going to put a few blobs on top, and I'm just going to bleed it into that Peacock Herl. and that'll help that Peacock Herl sit. And there we go. And then I'm just going to put a little bit around the back, around the edges, the base of where I've tied in the jungle, and underneath to seal them threads off underneath. And that's it. Once we're set, I'll just put my hand over it. And that's it. There we go. Hope you enjoyed that. Simple as you like bass fly. Give it a go. Please like and subscribe, and let me know what your favourite colour is in the comments. See you again soon.